What was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre? Let's dive into the bloody history of 1920s Chicago. It was a time of prohibition, a time when alcohol was banned, creating a lucrative, albeit illegal, liquor trade. The city became a battleground for rival gangs, each vying for control of this burgeoning black market. At the heart of these tensions were two notorious figures, Al Capone and Bugs Moran. Capone, a ruthless businessman with a knack for brutality, led the South Side Italian gang. Moran, on the other hand, was the boss of the North Side Irish gang. Their rivalry was fierce and often bloody, each one determined to dominate the city's illegal liquor trade. As the power struggle escalated, a plan began to form in the shadowy corners of Capone's mind. A plan that would shock the nation and forever change the face of organized crime in America. A plan that would involve stolen police cars, disguised gunmen, and a hail of bullets on a chilly February morning. And so the stage was set for one of the bloodiest days in the history of organized crime. On the morning of February 14, 1929, 7 members of Bugs Moran's gang walked into a garage, oblivious of the fate that awaited them. The day was crisp and cold, a typical winter morning in Chicago. The men were there for a supposed meeting, unaware that the plot was a ruse masterminded by none other than Al Capone himself. The stage was set for what would go down in history as the infamous St. Valentine's Day Massacre. As the men settled into the garage, a police car pulled up outside. But these were no ordinary police officers. They were killers, hired from outside Chicago by Capone, dressed in stolen uniforms and driving a stolen police car. Their disguise was so convincing that the gangsters inside the garage didn't suspect a thing. The officers entered the garage, their faces stern and unyielding. They lined the 7 men against the wall, their backs turned, their hands raised. There was no time for questions, no time for pleas. The echo of laughter and chatter was replaced by a chilling silence. Suddenly, the quiet was shattered by the deafening sound of gunfire. The killers opened fire with Tommy guns, a shotgun, and a .45, spraying the garage with bullets. The men didn't stand a chance. In a brutal, merciless onslaught, all 7 were mowed down, their bodies left slumped and lifeless against the cold, concrete wall. Meanwhile, Bugs Moran, the main target of the attack, had a stroke of luck. He had arrived late, and spotting the police car outside the garage, decided to lay low. His decision saved his life. As the killers left, believing their mission accomplished, Moran was left shaken, but alive. The massacre was over as quickly as it had begun. The police officers drove off, leaving behind a scene of utter devastation. 7 men lay dead, their lives brutally ended in a garage on a cold February morning. In a matter of minutes, the garage was turned into a bloody scene of carnage. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre shocked the nation and made headlines across the world. The brutal execution of 7 men in a Chicago garage in 1929 had left an indelible mark on the public consciousness, and the aftermath was just as impactful. Investigations into the massacre were immediate and extensive, but the intricate plot orchestrated by Al Capone had been meticulously designed to avoid detection. Capone had used hitmen from outside Chicago, a stolen police car, and uniforms as a ruse to deceive the victims and evade the authorities. Despite the intense scrutiny and public outcry, the case remained a mystery. No one was ever convicted for the brutal crime. This event, however, had unforeseen consequences for Al Capone. The massacre brought a glaring, unwanted spotlight on his operations. The public, the press, and law enforcement agencies were now all intently focused on Capone. His notoriety had made him a marked man. And while he was never convicted for the massacre, Capone's reign was soon to end. He was arrested for tax evasion and sent to Alcatraz, a far cry from his former life of power and influence. The orchestrator of the massacre, Machine Gun McGurn, met a similarly grim fate. He was killed in 1936, a violent end befitting the violent life he had led. Bugs Moran, the main target who had narrowly escaped the massacre, was also forever changed by the event. Shaken to his core, Moran was later arrested for bank robberies and spent his final years in prison. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre marked a turning point in the history of organized crime, signaling the beginning of the end for many gangsters of the Prohibition era. The aftermath of the massacre was a stark reminder of the fleeting nature of power and the inevitable downfall that follows a life of crime.